Welcome back to Callis Mindset podcast. I'm Kannon Callis, your host. And on this show, we talk about business, real estate, leadership, entrepreneurship, and the mindset that's worth building. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most overlooked but vital roles in real estate, the transaction coordinator. While agents are usually the face of the transaction, they usually get the PR, they usually get the FaceTime. Behind the scenes, most top performing teams, they have transaction coordinators and systematic approaches to keep their deals on track, clients informed, and closings on schedule. Today's guest is Alicia Sheehan. Alicia grew up in a family deeply rooted in real estate, transaction coordinators, agents, and in 2016, she joined Idaho's #1 real estate team, whose organization has recognized as top 11 in the country as recently as July of 2026. From 2016 to 2021, Alicia served in nearly every key operational role on the team, including Director of Operations, Transaction Coordinator, Administrative Manager, Personal Assistant, and Rental Manager. That experience gave her a front row seat to how one of the country's most successful and high velocity real estate organizations operates. In 2021, she launched her own transaction coordination business. Today, she supports more than 40 agents across Idaho while also leading a real estate team in South Carolina, a massive market that's growing faster than anywhere else, alongside her husband, Michael. Between leading operations for one of the nation's top producing teams and coordinating transactions for dozens of agents, she's been involved with more real estate transactions than most agents will ever see in their entire career. That's exactly why I wanted to have you on today. I've had the privilege of working alongside Alicia this year, and as a matter of fact, today we're closing on our 5th transaction together. It's a pretty exciting milestone, and her attention to detail, communication, organization has made a tremendous impact on my business, and more importantly, the experience my clients receive. Today, we're going to discuss transaction coordination, what they do, why it's one of the best investments you can do in real estate if you're growing your business, and also what Alicia learned along working with one of the top producing real estate organizations in the country. Whether you're an agent, a lender, insurance professional, or an entrepreneur looking to systemize your business, create better processes, delegate effectively, and create systems that allow you to scale, this episode's for you. Alicia, welcome to Callis Mindset.
Hi, Kannon. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, I think that introduction kind of spoke for itself.
Yeah, that's a long one.
You grew up around it. You have tons of experience in it. We're working together on it as well. And I wanted to share your story because the amount of transactions, the amount of relationships you've been a part of is so much more than most agents ever see. I just want to share your story. So can you tell us a little bit about, where you started and kind of where it went?
Well, I think it snowballed starting in 2016 when I was introduced to Matt through my mom, who was at the time his transaction coordinator. And she said, honey, he needs an assistant. And so I went on an interview. I met him. I had 4 interviews set up for that day. He was my second interview, and I ended up canceling my other 2 because he hired me on the spot. And from that moment on, it was just kind of fast paced. He threw me into the mix. I had never worked. I worked in lending a little bit, and I understood the terminology of real estate and things like that, but I had never worked as an assistant for an agent who had like this insane mindset of, we're going to close millions. We're going to be the top producing team. We need to be work, and balancing that with family. And it was very family oriented, but we were fast paced. Everything needed to get done. So that kind of started as just a little administrative assistant. And I think about 3 to 4 months into it, he's like, all right, let's get you moved up. Now you know what you're doing. So I was starting to do the transaction side of things, and then he was getting busier. So then I was doing listing coordinating, client care. And then as the team grew, I didn't really have to do listing coordinating anymore, but I was doing a lot of the client care, his personal investments, rental properties, things like that. helping families. And then when we had clients who were relocating, I was helping them get their house set up, doing all of the fixes and everything that they needed, inspections, follow-up calls. So it was really a hands-on client care operations management position. And it really taught me a lot about negotiations, not to be afraid of inspections, how to guide clients through that, people who are more A-type or engineers or maybe ADD, kind of like all over the place, being able to navigate those different types of relationships, learned how to manage Airbnb rentals, what needs to be an executive rental, how to do that, how to navigate that, how to set up pretty much every aspect of it. So I learned everything I needed to know in that industry and in that business. I created a really great relationship with Matt, and we went our separate ways amicably. And I'm very grateful for everything he taught me. And if I wouldn't have worked with him, I don't think I would be where I'm at now with how much I learned with him those 5 years.
Yeah, that says a lot. And to be thrown into the mix of something that is so producing, whether it's just you having the faster pace, the ability to manage all these tasks at one time, getting the hands-on experience at face value for all types of real estate, not just a realtor transaction coordinator specifically, and you just work in the contracts and the timelines, but you were really doing so much more than that. And
Mhm.
that's something that most people don't ever see that opportunity. Um, it's a really unique experience. And I wanted to ask, did you expect it going into it to kind of grow to that level within 5 years, or did you already kind of knew because your mom was part of it?
I don't know. Like I knew he had a lot of goals and aspirations, and he always would say you have to spend money to make money, right? So, like during COVID, that was the time he really pushed hard. I think that was our busiest time was in COVID. We really hit the ground running during that time, but it, it I didn't expect to for him to get that big so quickly. I think, and I don't think the team was growing nearly fast enough to cover the amount of work that needed to be done. So it's crazy to look at where he's at now and the giant team that he has. Since I left, I think when I left, there were 7 of us, and we had just closed 175 million with just us 7. And then now what he's I think when I left is when he hired a bunch of more people, and they've well surpassed 175 million.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think I didn't check this number recently, but we're late July at this point, so we're well through halfway through the year.
Mhm.
Um, we're at the same brokerage, Amherst Madison. He's been there. He's been an MVP there. I mean, he's an MVP in most states. Doesn't matter what market. You
Yeah.
think about the volume. He's not just the number one team in Idaho, which is a very, very small market compared to Dallas Fort Worth, where I'm from, or the Carolinas or Florida. And there's just so many more larger markets, which is more volume. He's top 11 is the most recent stat I heard in the entire United States for team volume,
Hmm.
one of the smallest states. So it just says a lot about it can't just be volume. It also has to be the quality of the type of deals he's doing. Um, Last year, he came into our launch class in August and spoke to us. I was new to the brokerage, so I was going through that, the workshop trainings that they do. And it was incredible just to see his know-how around the MLS. He knew everything about the data, the stats, the direction things were going. He had a crazy amount of transactions pending. At that time, I think it was between 60 and 70, just right then pending, not in the pipeline, right? So
Yeah.
to see that, it just opened my eyes to what's really possible here in Idaho, because I'm from a really large place. Real estate's massive in Texas, but to see, just, you don't get that type of view most days. Like, you don't get that exposure to some of the top performing people, let alone in the state or the country, but the world. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to, ask you a little bit about, what do you think it was that differentiated his team as you saw it scaling so quickly? And how did you really get to be kind of a part of that growth? Like, I know you had to be a huge part of it to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he during the smaller times, because I can't attest for anything from 2021 and beyond, but from the time that I was with him, accountability was a big thing. Um, we had our accountability team meetings. We were harping on the guys to make the phone calls, and also putting systems in place to provide a luxury service to every tax bracket. We aren't, you know what I mean? So a $200,000 home is getting nearly the same service as the $2 million house in downtown Boise is going to get. And he has had that idea from day one. So every client felt very cared for and over the top luxury experience. Then obviously he brought on his staging and all that stuff too. So that was really great to be able to offer that for clients. So I think it's just treating your all clients, no matter who they are, the exact importance. Like when his clients would talk to him, they'd feel like they were that really important person for that day. Like he stopped his day and made time. So I think he had an exceptional way of treating his clients and teaching all of everybody on the team how to treat their clients. And then our follow-ups. I mean, he's amazing. Well, at least when I was with him, he was word of mouth. There were no paying for referrals or paying for leads. Sorry. I think he paid for Zillow very small amount, but most of those phone calls that were coming in directly to me, or the people that were asking for us to list their house or help them buy, they were word of mouth. He was like, I think at that time, 85% word of mouth. So that just goes to show how we were treating the clientele. We did a lot of client appreciation events, handwritten. He had to write 7 handwritten letters every single day that I would mail out. We did cookie deliveries. Our assistant would drop them off. So I think that just elevates any client's experience. And there are a million real estate agents throughout across the United States, and there's only, what did I look at the number? It was like 12% are actually closing more than one deal a year. And if you want to be that 1%, you have to be better than that 11%. And most people aren't hands-on. So there you go.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He told the story that most of his early on business, and even today, a lot of his business share is still word of mouth and direct referrals because of the exceptional job they provided. It wasn't just a transaction that closed, it was an experience. They're part of his center of influence now, because it's not just a sphere of influence when you're at that level.
Yeah.
You're having some of the largest client appreciation events in the country. You're having some of the the coolest give backs and fundraisers and philanthropy because of the good work that you've done, the connections that you've built, the relationships. And I've got friends that have been vendors at some of his events, basketball related things. And it's just incredible to see some of the people that get involved when you do treat people the right way. You use unreasonable hospitality to go above and beyond, and you do the extra work and you do it yourself and make it personalized. And so that's, I think it's a cool example. But I also want to talk more about what a transaction coordinator does, and kind of pulling back the curtain on that role and the difference it can make. Because, and I know for a fact, for me, I wouldn't do this without it. So from someone
Yeah.
who has never worked with a TC, or maybe not even in real estate, they don't know what a transaction coordinator is. What do they do? What do you do, and how does it work?
Okay, so transaction coordinators, I like to say we are your email, text, phone call correspondence for your clients. Everything needs to be in writing. If you're a real estate agent, you know that. So a lot of what a transaction coordinator does is validate or reaffirm everything in an email and in writing. So when the contract when it goes pending, you're sending it over your transaction coordinator. They are making sure everything is on your calendar. All the due diligence deadlines are accurate. You're getting reminded of those things. They're maintaining your broker back office system so that you don't ever have to log into your broker back office system. They are communicating between in escrow, lenders, co-op agents, their assistants. If it's a builder, the builder team, all of just everybody behind the scenes that is in front of their computer all day, so that the real estate agent can be out in front of people for FaceTime, getting those leads, prospecting, and closing more deals. And transaction coordinator, for all intents and purposes, is just somewhat of an assistant, but they only handle paperwork. So they can't be there on site. There's really no need for a transaction coordinator to be on site, but they make sure you're within compliance. They're going to be that second set of eyes, that third set of eyes, maybe even fourth set of eyes, to make sure that you're not missing those deadlines, because earnest money in the state of Idaho goes hard on a certain date, and that's going to really suck having that conversation with your client if the contract wasn't read properly.
Yeah, it's true. So if you didn't catch that, they do everything behind the scenes that they can legally do.
That I
You
can
know,
legally do, yes.
they do focus on regulatory compliance, timelines, making sure a lot of the paperwork and deadlines are met. Communication to push those forward are, a big part of it. A lot of time it's also making sure that small details aren't missed. Like she said, she might be a fourth set of eyes, but if 3 sets of eyes overlook something so common, that it's just overlooked, that could throw off an entire deal. It could really hurt someone financially, and it could be illegal. There could be repercussions from that.
Mm-hmm.
So to have someone that is as experienced with the hands-on, the steps of the equation, the formula that it takes to actually get to the finish line, and giving the time back, it was really a no-brainer for me when I came to Idaho that, I am going to look to scale and do volume. Like, I do want to keep doubling as the year goes on, but I can't do that if I'm just one person. And one of my biggest areas is not a strength, is specifically detailed oriented tasks behind a computer. I've been behind computers for 10, 15 years presenting on software and real estate and sales related things. But when it comes to the logistics of actually completing tasks, I would prefer not to trust myself on that. I know the contracts, you've got to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's small things, there's so many, if you really look at it, there could be 1,000 different tasks for one transaction.
It's a lot when you're tracking earnest money deadlines, appraisal deadlines, inspection contingency deadlines, making sure those repairs get done. And when you're doing that and you want to double your work, if you want to close even 6 or 7 deals a month, I know there are agents that do that, but not all, not everybody fits that quota or that ability to do that. That way you can just focus on negotiating, and then your TC can do all the paperwork and within legality,
Yep,
with what they're
exactly.
allowed to do.
Yeah, that's the key point, is they can't do real estate licensee work on your
Mm-hmm.
behalf. That's illegal, but they can save you a lot of time with administrative type of tasks and assistant tasks and things that you're going to have to do anyway. And for me, I know it's a huge game changer, because I knew I wasn't just going to pursue agency out here in the Treasure Valley. We manage 20 properties right now, and it could be over 100 by the end of this year. And when scaling a property management company, that's a lot of hands-on work with an agency, that if you're not having a team or a system or some way to get more done with your time, it's not going to work out well. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's no brainer for me. What are some of the biggest problems that you solve, that you see agents, continuously doing? I know it's a lot of it is paperwork, missing certain things, or deadlines, but what are the top, let's say, 3 things that you've seen agents miss?
Representation paperwork is extremely important. And I know agents, because I get it, a lot of agents don't like to push, sign this paper, be under contract with me. But representation paperwork, because compliance is my job, it's important to get the compliance done properly up front, so that your commission isn't in jeopardy if we get to the closing table. And I have had this year, especially since the new law, had probably about a handful of deals get to the closing table against my advisement. Their client did not want to sign the representation paperwork. The agent wasn't going to push it. we were going to put a note in the broker file. And even though I advised at the beginning, you need to get this done prior, now they're not, now they're fighting for their commission at the closing table. I deserve my commission. And this is why I deserve my commission. Let me show you. That's why paperwork needs to be signed immediately. And I think that's a huge topic because it's not being trained properly right now in many avenues and many teams that I have seen over the last year or two. So I would say that's my top big red flag.
Yeah.
During
That's something that I think is kind of a rudimentary thing at the beginning. Like when you're a new agent, I see people making that mistake. I also see agents that are new to Idaho making that mistake. I've made that mistake before, but I also think with the way that most of the top teams are automating things, it can be part of their process. That's it should be a non-negotiable. It's something you should do every time the right way. And I've lost commission in Dallas when I first got my license. I didn't realize the importance of that exclusivity agreement. And I showed about 20 houses to, a couple, and then they had a friend that just happened to have a listing that matched what they wanted. And they were like, well, our friend said he could give us a deal because he's listing it. And it was over. It was just like that. It was like, I was kind of dumbfounded, left with like, what did I just do with those, 20 hours or more time?
You make
I was
that mistake
frustrated.
once. Yeah.
It took one time. I was 22 years old and I haven't made that mistake since. But I also have made another mistake that I won't make again, as an early on agent. And that is working with people that are not qualified financially on paper to purchase a home and spending a lot of time, showing homes, looking up, doing research. And then you get there and they're unqualified and they maybe won't be qualified for years to come. I know that's another heartbreaker.
Yeah, it is. It definitely.
So
yeah.
I know there's a big ROI on investing in a TC, especially if you're one of those people whose strong suit is face to face conversations, networking, relationships. If you're really good at paperwork, I'm not saying that shouldn't get a TC because you're good at paperwork. If you want to scale though, what do we all have that you can't get more of? It's time, and how you spend it is what matters. So to me, it's a major, return on investment. At what point do you usually see agents volume? Like when do they implement a TC? Do you see?
Well, I've seen it all over the board. I have currently agents who maybe do only a handful of deals a year and they're not a part of a team. Maybe they tried being an agent on their own without any administrative help and then decided I would rather be having dinner with my family than uploading that contract and making sure it's within in my broker file within 24 hours of going pending. So those kinds of things. I've also seen a big team come to me and be like, oh, we can't do this anymore. We need a TC really quick. Here's all of our stuff. Let's get going. So I think it's really dependent on where does the agent want to go? How many units do they want to close a year? And is like you said, is their time really worth the admin portion of it if you can pay somebody else to do it? A TC fee is taken at the end of the closing. Out of your commission check. You never even see it. It's like a secret savings account. I get paid separately, and it is a minute, like the smallest fraction of what somebody gets paid. So I think everybody should use a TC. I mean, I know I'm biased, but I think everybody should use one. There's no reason you should be spending 9:00 at night uploading your contracts when a TC could have done it during that 9 to 5 period while you were out showing houses. It's just, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't use one.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I wouldn't do it without it, as I mentioned. And one of the biggest reasons is I don't want my job to be everything anymore. I want my job to be making sure everything gets done.
Exactly.
Right? Like, how can we scale if we're limiting ourselves to specific tasks that if we can delegate and elevate, you know what I mean? Like if it's something that it really just, it's such a team thing, right? Like it's not just a me thing. It can't be about me, right? Which kind of reminds me that I want to talk also about the systems that you need to create to scale, because it's not just about, a lot of times the people that are helping. It's also about how are you building your business what systems and what, standard operating procedures have you implemented to maintain transparency, consistency, the same processes as the volume increases?
Yeah. So I have a one massive system that I use, and I had to build it out from the ground up. So that meant creating email templates with those little brackets, and it fills in like the buyer's name or the agent name. And it has a calendar and it sends out calendar invites, and it does have automated emails, but I, as who I am, a little OCD about how an email looks. So I'm always triple checking those before I send them out anyways. But it does help. I started out with, as a TC with the Bauscher team, and I was using Google Drive and a spreadsheet and Google Docs, and keeping everything in folders. And that might work for, your first year if you've done 5 or 6 deals maybe, but doing 20 to 30, 40 transactions, automation is key. And automation, a lot of people, I feel like they're like, oh, well, it's automated, so now it's not going to feel personal. The clients are going to feel like you're just blasting emails or blasting text messages. And my biggest rebuttal to any agent that I say that to is, if you are having this conversation with your client the moment you meet them, this is who I am. I'm your real estate agent. This is what I do for you. My team member, my transaction manager, her name is such and such, whoever you choose to, she is going to reach out to you. It is her job to verify and reiterate everything in email. That is what we need to do to keep everything on track. She's going to send calendar invites. She's going to handle the home inspection. So it's like, I think systems are having the strongest point of a system is having that first conversation and that first expectation, and communicating from beginning to end. And the automations, people expect them now. I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Especially
Yeah.
today's age where, we're living in a society that's almost immediate communication. At least
Mm-hmm.
that's what all the big companies have done, because they're kind of setting the precedent, because they know that speed to lead, speed to information, speed to money, right? That's just part of it. So I just so happen to have 5 to 7 years experience in the tech side, software, and it's mainly communication software. And I've seen what big systems can do when you really get finely tuned and you personalize that automation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the same rebuttal as well, is that what you put in is what you're going to get out. If you build it in a way that is personalized to them, with that transparent communication up front, with the expectation management, because you're telling what their job is, I don't really see how you can do a better job than that.
Right.
I don't. I mean, over a phone call, you could tell them that, but they could forget their names. They don't have the information right there. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like this is the natural progression of communication, is for it to be documented in front of you, in your hand, in your email, and
Mm-hmm.
also potentially on the phone at the same time.
It's always email, they'll skim it, text you, call you, communicate. And some clients will get frustrated. I don't want to get all these emails. It's important that you get these emails because we need something to reference. If I'm not available, you need to be able to reference something. So yes, definitely the clear communication and expectations set forth up front.
Yeah, it's such a game changer when it comes to just respecting their time as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, they shouldn't have to ask you for these answers. Like, your job is to
Exactly.
facilitate that information.
Exactly. That's
So
what we're trying to do.
so that's such a cool point, and I think most agents need to really focus on maybe going a little bit deeper with those types of tools. And I want to also talk about South Carolina, because you've relocated from Idaho to South Carolina. Just so happens that South Carolina was the fastest growing per capita state in the country. I believe it was last year, or maybe even this year too. Um, Idaho was number 2, second to that, and it's really cool to see that. But tell me more about what's going on down there.
Yeah, when we made the move in 2023, it was quite the whirlwind. I didn't last, but maybe a year before I got my real estate license, which when I told a lot of the agents that I work with that I got my real estate license, they were flabbergasted, because I had always vowed that I would never be a real estate agent, but apparently South Carolina changed that for me. So I got my license, and my first year I did pretty good for the most part. Got in really great with my broker, and he just loves my work ethic and my knowledge. I was able to just hit the ground running with clients and conversations and carry myself really, really well because of my experience. And the only thing I had to get used to was the South Carolina laws are a little bit different and the contracts are extremely different. So that was the only part I didn't quite have down. But I've had my license for a year and a half now. And then my husband just joined my team in February, and we're going to start a little team and maybe get a buyer's agent or assistant or something. And I don't need to be making I don't need to be closing like $120 million or $200 million a year. That's not necessarily my goal. I still want to be that enjoying the beach lifestyle. But we definitely do want to be one of the top producing teams in the state of South Carolina. So that's where we're headed.
Wow, that's an awesome story. And I definitely agree with the state is different. Idaho's landlocked.
Yeah.
Texas had oceanfront. South Carolina has oceanfront. There's
Mhm.
some laws and rules around that, I'm sure. But it's really cool and unique that you and Michael get to start a team, at the brokerage you're at, with your experience and just you guys being together for as long as you have. I guarantee you're gonna hit that goal. You're
Yeah.
gonna hit that milestone. It's just a matter of how many moons until then, right?
Hmm.
So I'm excited to watch that journey. Can you tell us about, are you bringing on a buyer's agent soon, or like what's your plan there?
I am a planner, no, TC. I am a systems creator. So right now I'm blueprinting what Sheehan Living Team looks like. Um, and then once I have that blueprint together, I think I'll feel more confident in bringing an agent on as a buyer's agent because my husband has only been a real estate agent since February. So to bring on another buyer's agent and to have to teach another buyer's agent on top of assisting my husband while running my business and doing my own clientele, it would just be a lot to take on. So I think having that blueprint in place, and the whole system ready to go, bringing somebody on will be a little bit more streamlined. So I'm just waiting for that right now.
Yeah, I've heard that some of the best outcomes are based on spending 90% of the time on preparation and 10% on execution.
Oh, you should see how I write my offers then
Right?
and how I negotiate. Oh my God.
So it's exciting that you guys are planning for that. It's a great place to be, not just beachfront. Like I love South Carolina. My wife
Mhm.
and I have been down there. We really, love the East Coast as well. Um, how do you find your leads down there? Being from Idaho for more time, longer than you've been down there.
14 years we were in Idaho. Yeah.
How are you building that lead flow?
So I was going into the office every day with my brokerage. When I was looking for a brokerage, I was deciding between Better Homes and Gardens because I have a soft part in my heart for them. But Century 21 Broadhurst, my broker owner, Jamie, he is born and raised in South Carolina, literally in the or outside the neighborhood I live in right now. And it was really important for me. I said, I know I want to be word of mouth agent at some point, but I have to build that clientele. I need to be with a broker who has been born and raised, has a great reputation within our small community, and will take me under his wing, essentially. So that's what I did. I interviewed with him, actually to be a TC for their brokerage, and he said, "You're crazy. Get your license. Come back to me when you're licensed, and then we'll talk." And that's what I did. And he said, "All right." So I did get a lot of my leads from floor time, actually, which was really lucky, getting phone calls. Those were nurturers. I had like 3 floor time leads, and it took me a year to like finally get them out here. And then broker leads. I really just came into the office and showed people what I could do and how hard I worked. And that's where I went. And then I got referrals just based off of those people that I had already closed. So I don't know. I just worked hard. I didn't sit down and twiddle my thumbs and say, come to me, fill my bucket, fill my bank account with, you know?
Well, that's also one of the other reasons I wanted to have you on the Callis Mindset podcast, is because I could tell just from interacting with you, seeing your path, your experience, who you've surrounded yourself with, and the direction that your trajectory is headed towards, that you represent this as much as anyone else who's been on this podcast. And, I'm excited that you have that opportunity. I am excited for the lessons that are still to be learned. We'll probably touch base, and obviously we work together, but we'll look back in a year from now or
Yeah.
two, and we'll be like, remember when we did the podcast and we were at this point, and now look what's going on. And I'm excited to look back on that. But what do you think it is that separates the agents that scale, they do what's in their best interest and hire a TC to help them scale, from the ones that are stuck at maybe one transaction a month, or, maybe not even that volume? Because like you said, most are not doing more than one transaction a year.
Yeah. I think it's simple. Delegating, letting go. I hear a lot. I'm guilty of saying it myself. I like to do things. I'm used to having my hands in all the pots and being in charge of everything, and I'm not great at delegating. But if you want to get your business or scale to a level that you'll be able to maintain on your own, so that maybe you don't have to have a team member or be a part of a team, you have to have somebody in the background doing what you're doing at a computer and at a table, so that you can be out running and doing the face-to-face stuff. And I've seen agents, the older agents that just don't necessarily want to talk to a transaction coordinator or use a transaction coordinator because of whatever their reason is. And it usually shows in their production. If you look it up, they stay where they're comfortable, and that's okay. You can stay where you want to be comfortable. But if you want to excel, if you want to do more business, you can't do it all by yourself. You'll never sleep and you'll never go on vacation. And it's just not necessary. You just have to let go and trust the person that you hire, and interview people. You don't have to pick a TC just because you Googled it and the first person that popped up. You are allowed to interview people just like your clients interviewed you to be their real estate agent.
Yeah, that was great advice. I interviewed 3 TCs, and you two of them were here in the state of Idaho.
Yeah.
They all have experience at Amherst Madison, and with different agents at the brokerage, but it worked really well so far, and I'm really happy I did. But in the future, I don't know what's going to happen with real estate. I know that a lot of people think that AI is going to take everyone's jobs, but AI can't have a real estate license.
Mm-hmm.
AI can't make someone feel the warmth of being there for someone through a transaction that is one of the biggest transactions they've ever had to be part of in their life. It might answer questions at screen value, but it doesn't have the judgment and discernment of a licensed professional. And when it comes to, it doesn't matter what state you're in, South Carolina or Idaho, I think the path forward is the agents that learn how to adapt, use people, use systems, and find a way to really just focus on what they're best at. Those are going to be the outliers. Did you ever do any of those behavioral or personality tests, like any of the
I've
ones
done
that get?
so many. I think I've done so many at this point in my life. I actually had to do one when I moved out here to interview for another brokerage. And that's why, I don't necessarily believe in those completely, because you change so much throughout your life and throughout certain circumstances. But I took that test, and he was like, oh, it doesn't say you'd be a good real estate agent. You won't be good at sales. And that agent I spoke with recently, because I showed one of his properties, and he was floored that I became a real estate agent, and that I'm actually, topping like top 100 in Century 21 Broadhurst, or that my husband and I are in the top 100 teams. So it was very surprising to him. And I'm like, see, you can't always don't bog yourself down based off of what a piece of paper says about you. I think you can go maybe learn a little bit from it and try to grow from it and be better than what the piece of paper told you are.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've taken a ton of those too. And I think that if you pigeonhole yourself or you box yourself out of opportunity based on the results of a behavioral test and a personality test that could be affected by what you're going through mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is, physically at that time. Um, you maybe want to just kind of disconnect yourself from that belief that that's because if you buy in, that's what mindset is. Mindset is about, to me at least, it's about your belief system, your values, your core internal instincts, where you go when things are the hardest they've ever been or when they're the best they've ever been. It's almost like a character trait of something that you can adapt, you can grow, you can change based on how you spend your time to develop that. But your brain is a muscle just like anything else. If you're using it, it's going to grow, it's going to get better, you're going to learn,
Exactly.
and you're going to adapt. But if you're not, it might shrink. It's going to it's basically like a muscle, right? Like when you stop working out, it's going to atrophy. And so I think I like the conversation and how it's gone today. Where I was going with that was, have you noticed any type of characteristics, mindset traits, behavior traits? I don't know, it could be astrological sign. Do you see any type of trends or commonalities between people that are truly setting themselves apart from just maybe your average performer?
Grit.
Grit.
I think I said that to, I had an agent when I was working for the Boucher team. She called me because I would get agents calling me all the time. Oh, can you train my assistant? Can you train my assistant? I just don't, you've been doing so great. And this one agent called me and she's like, my son wants to be my assistant and I want to train him. And I said, she's like, what is the one thing that he needs? And I said, grit. And she's like, oh my God, I haven't heard that word in years. And I think that the real estate world is that. I mean, you have to want to do it. You have to want to show up. And even when you don't want to show up, you still have to show up. So I think that that's going to be my word for the type of person that has it, that can do it.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with that. I think, having grit, to me, that means it's someone that's showing up no matter how they feel. It's showing up no matter how the circumstances are going, if they're winning or losing. It's showing up even if they've gotten knocked down 999 times. It's showing up that 1,000th time when most people would have quit after the first or second time. That's the type of people that created the world we live in. Do you think a light bulb was invented on the first time?
Can you imagine?
Think about
like
anything.
Drinking a pint of beer and he's like, oh shit, look, the light bulb just started working. Yeah, no.
Yeah, things don't happen because we give up after the first, second, third, fourth, you name it, unlimited times. It's the continuous, it's adapting that, right? It's becoming a lifestyle for you, a personality trait, a key trait that you don't ever let go, and it's not just in one thing, it's in everything that you do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a good word to keep. So for our listeners today, if you take anything out of this other than who you work with matters, the systems that you work with matter, it's your grit, it's your perseverance, and keeping that in mind. So I wanted to say, thank you again, Alicia, for coming on the show today. I think our conversation gave people a real appreciation for everything that happens behind the scenes, and for successful high volume teams, especially, they wouldn't happen with people like you. So if there's one takeaway that, someone can take from this episode, it's behind most teams that are doing huge numbers. You see the face of the agents. Just know that a lot of times they have behind the scenes individuals, teammates, members that are on the admin or operations side. They also need recognition that they deserve. And great businesses, they're not built by one person. Even if every contract says one person's name on it, chances are great people, great systems, leaders, they know how to delegate. Those are the ones that are winning. So for anyone who's listening today, grit is the word. And if you're asking, how can I do more? How can I make more? How can I do more for the world? Just look yourself in the mirror and, do you have grit, or how do you get it if you don't? Thank you again, Alicia, for sharing your experience today. And we'll see you next time on Callis Mindset.